to announce yet another milestone in the renewal of the ECDC, the appointment of Mr. Ayanda Wakaba as the full-time Chief Executive Officer of the ECDC. This follows an extensive search process which the board undertook, and here today we announce that Ayanda Wakaba will be the new captain of ECDC, taking us forward through the renewal program. He has emerged as a CEO out of the very thorough and tough selection process. He's armed with accounting, auditing, and finance qualifications, and a depth of experience in economic development landscape. Having served as a CEO and the founding CEO of the Ndinga Development Agency, has served in key strategic executive roles, including being a COO of the IDT, and has served in many governance structures in terms of different boards and audit committees, in terms of the state entities, including municipal entities. He joins us at the time where we have embarked as a board on a consultative process where we're talking to stakeholders, listening to their thoughts and their ideas about what ECDC should we build as a new board as part of the renewal program. He will play, together with his management team, he will play an instrumental role in ensuring that the strategy that we build as ECDC is fit for purpose as well as fit for the future. But most importantly, it's informed by what the key stakeholders dream of a development agency in the Eastern Cape. Of course, he joins the ECDC at the most challenging time when the corporation is in its renewal and turnaround, and making sure, in order to make sure that it can play its rightful place as a lead economic development agency of the Eastern Cape. He joins at the time where the demand for support by most of our SMEs has never been this high, given the impact of COVID and the need for renewal. So he has to look into all these things together with the board to ensure that we are able to provide the right liquidity into the ECDC, but most importantly, we reach further afield to support the SMEs across the geography, the length and breadth of the Eastern Cape province. There are a number of actions that this board has undertaken, which Mr. Wakaba will lead with the management team. One of those key areas is around the transformation of the property real estate business for the ECDC. It's clear and it's well-known fact that there's a lot of work that we need to do there as a board as well as the ECDC, how to transform the property real estate business and make sure that it's sustainable. This board has worked out a clear intervention plan and the strategy. The strategy is threefold. Pillar number one is to transform for productivity. That is rationalize for productivity, where we look at the balance sheet restructuring. We're making sure that the non-productive assets like vacant land and non-core assets, we can actually be able to dispose of those in order to support the core assets of the business. And part of the lead elements of that strategy is to make sure that ECDC focuses a lot on commercial and industrial real estate versus as compared to residential. So what we'll do, we'll look at the balance sheet, the lazy part of the balance sheet we are going to dispose of and use the proceeds from sale of vacant land and non-strategic assets to finance the restructuring and reconfiguration of the core strategic assets like commercial property as well as industrial property. Pillar number two of that is really the transformation of the base, making sure that we bring in private sector funding, leveraging private sector investment to help us transform some of the strategic assets like commercial buildings. So when you do the transformation, you sell non-core. When you rationalize to harvest in finance or capital, you use that capital to transform your core base. In implementing that decision, you also crowd in private sector investment through commercial JVs and partnerships to be able to support the transformation of the business. And you'll see that the biggest thinking here is around making sure that the restructuring of the property unit, a real estate business, doesn't become burdensome to the state. You have to have a mixed model of raising capital. Take away cut off the lazy part of the balance sheet, crowd in private sector investment to actually be able to show up and invest in the core. And of course, it's inevitable that it is the expectation that there will be some degree of capital calls, but those are the discussions from the shareholder. Those are the discussions which are ongoing. But I think the crux of the matter is that we don't see the transformation being purely around going to the shareholder and said, well, you need to renew, therefore write the check. We're saying there's part of the balance sheet that we can make it more productive. We think there's a private sector interest that can actually be crowded in to actually invest. We think that the residual investment required may need capital calls, but we're not there yet. I think when we get there, we'll make the right, we'll have the right conversations with the shareholder. So in a nutshell, that's the strategy. Obviously, the third pillar is around investing for growth. Ecdc has to invest to drive the economy of the Eastern Cape in some of the assets, whether it's in the agro-processing, aggregation hubs or economic infrastructure, or in the SME hubs, so that you can support small-scale manufacturing, all of that. So those are some of the pillars in the strategy, but today the biggest single focus is around making sure that we can restructure the property real estate business. When we do so, yields will improve, and therefore it gets into a much more sustainable business and begin to contribute to the broader development and growth of the Ecdc. There are challenges that we know, properties that have been hijacked, properties where people are not paying rent. We do think that through a very clear consultative process as well as a legal strategy that we have adopted, including the improvement of the property base, all that should come to an end. So we are committed to work with stakeholders, listening to them, understanding why certain things are happening, but it's clear state property has to belong to the state, but also Ecdc has to be a good landlord, and that's what we are focusing on building. So, colleagues, with those few words, I've covered both the property strategy, but most importantly, I've announced that Wakaba is joining us today to take over as the CEO of Ecdc. We have all the confidence in him as a board, and wish him all the luck and success in a job at hand. It's an important job of leading a development agency of the stage of Ecdc, and it's a job we take with great humility as a board, and we know he's signing up with the same sense of humility and urgency at the same time. Lali, I think I've covered the kind of introduction I wanted to make, including covering a bit of property. At the right time, you'll call us when we can take questions. Craig is here. He's an expert on it. I'm only just a board member.
Thank you, Mr. Jahana. I think our colleagues that are joining via Teams are saying their audio is not clear. Can we just take a moment to sort that out? But I believe on the social media platforms that we are streaming on, it is it's audible, but we're only having a problem with Teams. With my phone. I'm not connected to Sifu. Can we check with yours? This is to test the audio. Can someone that's joining on Teams confirm if they can hear the audio clear? Can we get a confirmation from someone?
Board members, they say this, even on Facebook, it says it has not started.
Nothing. Okay. Okay. Testing again. Can you hear from your side, Sifu? Can I just get a moment to go and understand what the problem is? Let's continue. It seems it has been sorted. We have colleagues that have confirmed via Teams, via Facebook, that we are audible. I will ask if we can proceed. Okay. We will proceed now and ask Mr. Wakaba to give us a few words following the welcoming that we've just received from Mr. Jahana. Following that, we'll open for a Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lali. Warm greetings to the board and to the media contingent and to the colleagues who are joining this session. I must begin by expressing a word of appreciation to the board and to the executive authority for having placed or entrusted this huge role upon my shoulders. Knowing that a number of these stakeholders may not have had an opportunity of working with me and have had to rely on the strength of the recruitment process. I think the assurances I want to give is that the candidate that the board has selected is committed to getting the job done. I have had an opportunity of working in this province for a number of years, have a very good sense of the challenges we face, the realities of the communities of the Eastern Cape. In fact, my home is just 5 kilometers from the Aidutjwa city center. So I am very familiar with the lives, the hopes, the aspirations, the challenges that this community of the Eastern Cape is faced with. Over the last 14 years, my work has been in development management. 3 of those years, I've worked mostly in the area of strategy, risk, and in institutional performance. If anything of these years have taught me is that to succeed in any venture, we need a common vision. We need to face the same direction. We need soldiers that keep their posts, officials that do, and institutions that do their part. A lot is often said about the value of partnerships. True partnerships are critical. It is unlikely that we can achieve anything without working together. However, a foundation of officials, institutions that do their part is critical. We need to integrate our efforts, and we need men and women who are committed to making a difference in the uplifting of this nation as against themselves, as against self-gratification. I raise these things because these are part of the values I believe in, and these are some of the values that I intend introducing and inculcating in the culture of the organization. I am mindful, as I indicated earlier, of the socio-economic challenges and pressures of the province. I'm mindful of the hopes and aspirations of the citizens of this beautiful province, and the near depleted patience and the waning faith of communities on government, which all brings in a huge sense of urgency in how we do things as an organization. We are uniquely placed as the Ecdc. In fact, I cannot think of any institution in the Eastern Cape that has the vintage opportunity we have of making a difference in the lives of the people of this region. I actually believe that if we, or rather when we do what we meant to do, and when we do it well, that we shall leave a legacy of making a difference in people's lives. I know too well that only a job executed, only a task undertaken, only a service delivered, or a commitment fulfilled matters. That promises no longer make it, not only to communities, but to the general population. Once upon a time, communities could take promises home. Nowadays, they are not interested. They want to see action. And I think that's what we will be doing along with my colleagues is, action. I accepted this role with the intention of making no promises, but along with my colleagues of getting down to doing the job. The task at hand is clear, working alongside other players to facilitate, coordinate, and implement programs and interventions that economically uplift the lives of the citizens of this province. Earlier on, we had an internal briefing with management, and three things among many that were shared, three things stuck to my mind from that earlier engagement. One was the need to renew the organization. Two was the need to pursue, explore opportunities, and not to be stuck on what has gone wrong, but to focus on unveiling a new future for the organization and the province. Three, execution. These are the things that we shall be focusing on as a team. We are also mindful of the burning bushes, the areas of priorities that the organization has to look at, the property development area and the challenges regarding its state, the need of agency in the implementation of the recently approved strategy will be among the top priorities that we will look at. The development finance area, I think the need for finance and support for SMMEs cannot be overemphasized. And if any action is necessary, it was yesterday. So we certainly shall be putting a lot of focus in that area. The need to review the strategy, a process which is underway, will be one of the interventions that we will be looking at as we move forward together with my colleagues. As I come to close to concluding my remarks, there are 4 aspects which I just want to highlight, which will define the culture, at least of leadership within the organization, which we intend to, cascade to the entire organization. One, being pragmatism. We want an ECDC that promotes practical ideas underpinned by business and economic science, not ideology. And I think this is what we will pursue. Number 2, we want a vision-led organization which promotes well-thought, progressive, long-range perspective-oriented programs, inclusive and impactful initiatives. Number 3, we will inculcate a culture where there's a direction in the organization, there's clarity about what it is that we want to do and how we will achieve that. And we will do so by formulating specific proposals, inculcating clarity on trade-offs, canvassing our ideas widely, going for sufficient consensus against unanimity in order to make sure that at any point in time we are able to move forward as an organization. And fourthly, we will inculcate a culture of decisiveness and follow-through, timely decision-making, prompt actions, effective communication, follow-through, closing the loops on the matters that we deal with. It is my intention to introduce a culture where we brief not only our stakeholders, but the province through sessions like these. And maybe we can do this, Lali, on a monthly basis, but we will see as we move forward, where we talk to you and update you on the things that we are doing. The intention is to, as I say, close the loop, that which we said we are doing, we must be able to come back and say we have now traveled half the distance, 80% of the distance, and we've reached the destination. Given that we are lifting and turning our heads towards execution, the idea is that we need to ensure that what we've committed to do, it is done. Having said so, I must repeat my earlier expression of appreciation of the trust placed upon me to lead this very important unit of work, and commit to do so humbly and to employ all my resources in making a difference to the people of the Eastern Cape. Whenever I have an opportunity, I bring in this piece of information that I'm a saved Christian. So I rely not only on my abilities, but also on the Lord's enabling to get the job done. I wish to close my remarks, Chair, by saying I look forward to working with the board. I realize, as you had pointed out earlier on, that the patient is in ICU, as metaphorically, the state of the organization, and that the doctor does not leave the patient in those circumstances. So I look forward to strengthening the partnership between the executive and the board, and I look forward to working with the rest of the stakeholders in taking this province forward. Thank you, Lal.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wakaba, for that. Maybe before we move on also, I think on behalf of the Office of the MEC, he's sending his best regards and apologizing for not being able to join us today. He woke up not feeling well. And without then, if there's any word from his office, we'll definitely make sure to include it in the press statement that will follow this briefing. Maybe before we go to the Q&A section, I just had a word with Mr. Thompson, who's the head of our property unit. He'd like to make a few announcements, adding to what Mr. Jahana was talking to. Mr. Thompson, can I hand over to you now?
Good morning to the chairperson, board, management, and colleagues, and the media. Just to inform you that the process of transforming and rationalizing the property portfolio of the ECDC is underway. The first step in that direction is our first public auction of vacant land. That is 16 sites in the Mthatha area. And that auction is currently underway at the moment. We have online registration through our website. We have advertised through the Daily Dispatch and the EP Herald. And that process of bidding can commence from tomorrow and closes on the 9th of July. Unfortunately, with the level 4 lockdown that we are now under, the on-site auction has had to be postponed, but we will continue with the online auction. So please will you have a look at our website. You'll be able to view each individual property and make your bid should you be interested. And we're trusting that this is the start of really rationalizing the portfolio as we've had. Our chairperson has indicated that we are wanting to get rid of non-core assets. Vacant land of under 2,000 square meters is part of that strategy to dispose. Following that, there will be an ongoing process of rolling out further auctions for vacant land, for residential properties as well, particularly in the Mthatha, Butterworth areas, where we have a high concentration of that type of property. So those will be ongoing over the next 6 to 9 months. And more importantly as well, engaging with the private sector to leverage in funding to transform the way that we operate and manage our properties going forward. Our first expression of interest will be going out towards the end of July for 7 properties across the Eastern Cape province. Mthatha, Butterworth, Queenstown and Buffalo City Municipality all have properties that we would like to bring to the market to look for long-term investors. So please keep your eyes on our website and also on the media, printed media. We will be advertising on a regular basis in that regard. If there are any questions or clarity required, please feel free to contact our office here in ECDC or contact myself. I'm happy to give further clarity in that regard. Thank you very much, Chair and CEO. Thank you.
Before you move, it seems, okay, maybe we'll take all the round of questions and then answer after we've received them. Is that all right with you, Ted? All right, okay. We will be, just as Mr. Thompson was announcing that the catalog for all the 16 vacant land properties will be live on the ECDC website tomorrow, and that is www.ecdc.co.za. We'll also put it on our social media pages so that you can find links to the actual catalog to get the detailed information on the details of all the properties. We will do likewise with the expression of interest as well. We'll make sure to share that on our social media platforms. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Jahana. Thank you to you too, Mr. Wakaba. I think now we would like to open it for questions and answers or any comments that we may need to make. So we'll watch closely on the Teams meeting as well to see if there's any questions that we're picking up from that side. Thank you. I'll open the floor now to questions. Should I bring the mic to you? You sorted. Okay. Okay. Well, I don't see. Can you check if there's any hands for us? Can you check if there's any hands? There's no hands. Okay. Okay. We do have one. We just want to confirm. We have someone there. Yes. Okay, colleagues. What we'll do is that we will also just make sure that following this session, we provide a media statement, which is going to be a brief detail of what we had just presented now. And we will still open our line for any questions that may come. Those can be sent via our office. And we will then definitely make sure to attend to those. There has been some media houses that have expressed, Mr. Wakaba, that they would like to have a sit down with you. One of them being Vukani FM. We'll make that arrangement. Nolo, we're noting your request. And also Ted has requested to have a sit down with you as well following the session. So we will allow for that, colleagues. We will also allow for sit-down sessions online, considering the level 4 COVID-19 restrictions that are not permitting for meeting. It's actually also not safe for us. We don't see any hand from the media. And I think, colleagues, without, if there's a hand or there's a question, we will ask that it gets forwarded to our office, then we can forward it to you, Mr. Jahana, and we'll also include you, Mr. Thompson, on that if there's any queries coming to you. And then can I give over to you to wrap up for us? Okay. No, that's fine. Colleagues, I think we've reached the end of our program. Thank you to you for joining, and thank you for gracing us with your time and honoring the invite. We are now closing the session. Thank you so much.